your story and your experience with God and your understanding of how God has brought healing into your life or transformation into your life, I think that can bring a lot of confidence in a sense of like, I think a lot of the restlessness comes from like maybe what we don't know.
Right.
And so starting with what we know, and what you know as a Christian is how God has brought you to himself, like how he has healed you, how he has transformed you, how you have experienced the Holy Spirit, how you have experienced prayers being answered, like how you have seen the hope of Jesus in the world. And no one else can say that except for you, and like no one can share the ways that I've seen God move in my life except for me.
Right.
And so just sharing that, and I think one like kind of caveat in that is we talk a lot in the like Christian culture about like sharing your testimony and sharing your story. And I have found in my experience in small groups and whatever that it often becomes like a glorification of our mistakes or a glorification of our sin, however we want to talk about it. And like, I don't know, maybe put yourself in the shoes of someone who you're sharing with. Like, what do you think they want to hear? They don't want to hear necessarily like you're really like really difficult past and all these things.
Sometimes I hear someone tell their testimony, I'm like, actually, like you're just making a really good case for how awesome your life was.
Like I was
you
didn't
all the
actually
time
talk. I was
about
having way
God.
too much fun.
So that's just like a helpful lens to kind of look through before maybe you share some of that stuff. I don't want to say like focus on the brokenness, but like allow the things that God has done to be at the forefront and the center of what you share. So if like you struggled with, I don't know, like a really difficult relationship with alcohol and now you experience like freedom from that, I think highlighting how God has met you there and the things that God has offered you and healed you in, as opposed to focusing on like a broken relationship with something or with someone. And that to me is a really really cool starting place to feel confident in what you're sharing, because you can own that and you can speak from your like authentic experience
that's
with the Lord.
The way that I was thinking about it, if I was telling my thinking about it in my sense, is like starting in a similar place where Ken was saying was like, I was told the gospel in lots of ways that sucked. So I don't want to perpetuate my own story, right? You know, so like as many things that we've talked about on this podcast and show like multiple times, there's so much of your own self in there. So I think that would be one of the first things I would say is like, if you're hesitant to that, is there some sort of your own personal journey or narrative that's telling me, hey, like there was actually damage done there and like, let God heal that or whatever. And the second thought is this and it goes back to another conversation we had a couple weeks ago, which is, do I actually think the good news is like good news?
Yep.
Right. So like, what do you feel like you have to tell someone? And if you're embarrassed by it, like you should probably reevaluate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if the reason why you're not sharing it you feel like it's going to be pushy is because it's pushy, then that means it's a crappy gospel. Or at least you think it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And most likely if it is like some version of the gospel, I mean, like you can go back and listen to the What is the Gospel video or listen to that podcast. Yeah, there's lots of ways to talk about what God did in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus that's going to feel crappy, you know, to anyone that's listening and hearing. And so I think that would be a spot to go back to, because if it is really good news, like to the point of like the idea that N.T. Wright talks about in Simply Good News is like you're announcing a new reality of something that has utterly shifted and changed the trajectory of the world, if not maybe the universe, then of course you're going to want to talk about it.
Yep.
Right? Like, but if it's just mediocre advice, like it's better for you to go to heaven than it is to go to hell, like that's not that compelling.
Right.
You know, but if it's like, no, Jesus has a plan and story for your life, has defeated death in the cross, and there is a new reality and a new way to be human. If
available right now.
Right now, in this exact moment, and carrying into eternity, where you can start setting everything in the world to rights, including the ways that you feel hurt and broken. Like, man, like sign me up for that today.